Bill very graciously decided to hand it off free of charge to us. And so eventually that is the plan for us, to be able to find somebody that will be as excited about it as we are, be able to give them something cool to get them going and keep the nursery alive for hopefully another 100 or so years.
Hello, my name is Ria Windcaller, and I am the producer and cider MC of this weekly podcast, where we speak with makers, cider enthusiasts, and folks within the cider trade from around the world.
Hip, hip, hooray!
Bringing us into episode 466 of Cider Chat was Connor Hardiman. He is the proprietor now of St. Lawrence Nurseries, he and his wife Allyssa. And he was referring to how they came about owning St. Lawrence Nurseries, or SLN for short. And it wasn't through an exchange of cash. It was actually a passing of the torch from one amazing person to some others. And that was the fellow by the name of Bill MacKentley, who was featured on episode 391 of Cider Chat when he gave a talk on Tess Winters and Climate. And that was at the New York Apple Camp that year in 2023. And Bill, just an amazing person. He is still around, he and his wife. You're going to be hearing about them and a little bit about how this all came about. It's just gave me such an immense feeling of hope. And I think it will give that to you too, if you're somebody who's looking for how do we move young farmers into land when it's not necessarily in their family. And that's a tough road to travel these days, to just get land in general, never mind actual farmland. So there's a lot going on up in Potsdam, New York, where St. Lawrence Nurseries is located. It is a niche nursery in that it's really focused on cold, hardy trees. And yes, they have a lot of apple trees. We're going to be talking about that. This was a sit-down conversation at the nursery with both Connor and Allyssa. So you're in for a treat. So do stay tuned. But before we get there, we're going to hear a wee bit of news from out and about in Ciderville. Welcome to Cider Chat. If this is your first time checking it out, this is a weekly podcast now in its 10th season, with catching up to almost 500 episodes with folks all over the globe talking about orchards, cider pairing, troubleshooting cider, featuring a lot of cider makers from many, many countries. There's a search bar at ciderchat.com. You could put in a name of someone, or maybe a location or a region that you are traveling to, and up will pop one of the episodes from that region. And you're pretty much guaranteed from just about any part in the world right now where there's cider that you're going to be able to find an episode featuring that region, which has, what happens when you have 10 years going. In last week's episode, we had Kyle Duda of 1000 Stone Farm talking about the cider program there, and also what is called the Farmhand Cider House and Kitchen that he runs with his wife Betsy, who is a certified chef. She attended the Culinary Institute of America, and she and Kyle are working it. They use a lot of the products from the farm, vegetables, the livestock they're working with. It's a really amazing place, right smack in the middle of Vermont, super easy to get to, a definite destination. Because we're in our summer schedule, last week I didn't release an episode officially, but there is a bonus episode for patrons of Cider Chat, because I couldn't not let this amazing audio be published. And it was Kyle and myself in the barrel room at the cidery talking about each little barrel. There was Kingston Black, Ashmead's Kernel, Dabinet, and a little bit of troubleshooting when there was a little bit of sulfur detected. It's kind of like comes off as an eggy smell. And we really delved into that. If you want to check out that podcast episode, do go to the Cider Chat Patreon page. And that's where you could sign up, become a patron, and enjoy. There's lots of past episodes that weren't aired officially on the podcast and are for patrons only. And in fact, out of that, we got a patron. And his name is someone that if you're in the cider world or, just talking on social media, you may have heard of this guy because he was also featured on an episode a while ago now, and that is Patrick McCauley. He's based in Michigan, and I had him on episode, let's see, what was that? That was a little bit a while ago. I have the link here in the show notes for you. It's episode 302, and he was talking about all the cider mills from 1841 to today that he's been researching, and such a really amazing history, because one of the stories that he has in there was super interesting. Was on Martha Array Day, and she was the owner of a cider mill that once stood in the middle of the road. In the middle of the road, right? We're talking way, way back. And of course, she was a woman, but she was also an African-American woman. So that's like two things that aren't easy back in the day, having businesses. And she is believed to be one of the few documented Black business owners at the time in the trade of cider. And the mill was located at Michigan Avenue in Pittsfield Township, and it looked to have like a 10-year run between 1880 and 1899. And Patrick noted that the mill made 1,500 barrels of cider. And equally notable was the father, Asher Array, used the farm as a station on the Underground Railroad in the years before the Civil War. So that's a super cool episode with Patrick. And I'm going to read his letter here because this is something I ask all patrons to send something in. And even though I've been corresponding with Patrick, well, let's hear what he says all about that. He writes, "Hey, Rhea, I've been listening to Cider Chat so long that I'm embarrassed that I haven't become a patron sooner. WTF? I should have done this years and years ago. Anyway, I love your podcast so much. You have so many interesting guests, and I think that after Claude Jacquelaire's The New Cider Maker's Handbook and the historical recipes I've been researching and emulating, Cider Chat has been my biggest source of useful information that has improved my cider making. And that's all thanks to you and your interesting guests." Wow, that's really awesome to hear, Patrick, and means a lot to me, and I know everybody who's been featured on the podcast all these years. I learn a lot too. That's how we kind of are passing it back and forth. But thank you for that. We always ask, how did you find out about Cider Chat? And he wrote that he stumbled upon it via Spotify, one of the many apps that Cider Chat is archived on, back in 2017, when he was really starting to get serious about his own cider making. And he remembers that his wife and he himself had just bought this dilapidated 1837 house that they were restoring, and they were listening to Cider Chat while toiling away on some projects in the nasty old cellar. I usually listen to Cider Chat while working on the house, and especially when I'm in the cider room racking or bottling cider. And I bet you also have a glass there, because when I listen to Cider Chat, it makes me thirsty. He tells us a little bit about his journey with cider. He got bit by the cider bug 26 years ago after reading about it in one of his history classes at the University of Michigan. He had been drinking it, and he has been drinking it ever since, but it's only been in the past 15 to 20 years or so that he's been really loving it as his primary drink of choice. Yay! He writes, I think that has to do with the improved quality of the ciders that I can find here in Michigan, which is a hard state to ship alcohol to. That's interesting. As the quality of what was available improved, I pretty much stopped drinking beer, wine, and spirits. Still, there was something lacking. I tried some French ciders and was completely blown away by it. It didn't make any sense to my American brain and palate. This is when I really started researching cider, reading everything I could find on the subject, and then started making my own. I have been primarily wild fermenting every cider I've made since the beginning, chasing what was special about those early French ciders I had. Oh, good luck with that. It's terroir, baby. You got to get the apples from where it is and the yeast. And anyways, I know a lot of Americans that I have met working towards French. You're going to get there. All right. Do you like a particular style cider? He writes, I mostly just drink my own cider since I've had hundreds of gallons aging in my cider. Where's that house again? There's way too much down there. When you make as much as I do, you had better like your own cider. My problem is that I love the act of making cider and always make way more than my wife and I can drink without going off the deep end. So I end up just giving it away to friends, family, and real estate clients. Wild fermented, unfiltered, and pet net cider is my favorite kind. Keep ciders are also an appeal to me as long as they aren't too sweet. It's all about the balance of the different elements of the cider. Sweetness can be an important tool in balancing the harsh acidity of many of the apples that thrive here in Michigan. I love cider that's made in the traditional way. There's nothing better than a wild cider that's made with care and bottled on lees. I've also had some really terrible ciders made this way, many of which were my own. But generally, it's my favorite style. You can get a little funk at times, but Lord knows that we don't need more sterile, alcopop, grocery store style cider. Hear, hear. The spectrum of flavors that can be achieved using wild yeast only seems to be limited by the fruit going into it and the talent of the cider maker. I also like cider that represents the place that it comes from. I mean, I love using English and French cider apples to make different styles, and when I first started planting my orchard, I planted lots of these. Since then, though, I've been focusing more and more on what Michigan cider is or was, and I've been planting and grafting more traditional varieties that were planted here 200 years ago, like Detroit Red, Farmajus, Red Canada, Baldwin, Palm Grease, etc. The French and English are so good at making cider that I'm not sure we need to try to best them or even try to compete with them. We should be focusing on what was and is great about the American cider style and perfecting that as much as possible. Thanks again for all you do and keep up the good work. Give my best to the Talking Palms and everyone out in your corner of Ciderville. And you know I will. They're always in the cider house listening to every word I'm speaking, and I can see them nodding their heads now. Yep, Mr. Quince gave you a salute. So there you go.
Roger that, Patrick.
Oh, there you go. You got Mr. Quince.
Us too.
Yep, you got the Medlars.
And Patrick, I'd like to add that I wish there were more pears in Michigan.
Perry.
All right. Thank you so much, Patrick. And we are going to be hearing from Patrick again. I'm going to be recording an episode with him because we do have some updates from his research that he's been doing into historic American cider making. And you're going to be in for a treat. He's a really engaging guy. And yeah, we will be recording with him again. So do stay tuned for that. And I hope that you're also getting some value from this podcast too, which means I really encourage you to become a patron today. Search for Cider Chat and Patreon. That's spelled Patreon, or hit the donate button at ciderchat.com. Cider Chat also offers Totally Cider tours, and the next one heading out is to the United Kingdom, and that'll be taking place later this summer. And I want to say it sold out in a flash. So if you're thinking, oh, yeah, that's something I like to do, and believe me, if you love cider, this is something you want to do, then send an email today to Cider Chat. In the title, put Cider Tours. Let us know who you are, how many in your party, and send it to info@ciderchat.com. And we'll make sure to get you on the wait list today for cider tours coming up in 2026.
Walking through the orchard.
Up next is our featured presentation with St. Lawrence Nursery. And I want to take a moment, though, beforehand to just tell you how I first met Connor and Allyssa Hardiman of St. Lawrence Nursery. It was, as I mentioned, at New York Apple Camp a couple summers back. They had driven Bill MacKentley down to the event so he could give a talk. Now, if you know Bill, you know he's a bigger-than-life character, someone who can easily take up a room. But what really caught my attention was how Connor and Allyssa moved with him, fully present, attentive, and gracious. They weren't trying to be the center of anything. They were there to support their mentor, and it really showed. That kind of elder respect is something you don't see often enough, and it left with me a very lasting impression of the core of who these people are, really giving me hope that just goes beyond words for the future of pomology in terms of nurseries and leading other folks generationally forward. We're in good hands. In this episode, we talk about the legacy of St. Lawrence Nursery and why they only graft on a particular type of rootstock, their work with cider apple varieties in extreme climates, and, of course, the emotional connections that people have to trees, especially when it comes to preserving family history. So let's head to Potsdam, New York, and grab a glass and join this chat with Connor and Allyssa Hardiman of St. Lawrence Nursery, way up in upper upstate New York. We are in Potsdam proper, right?
Yes, Potsdam, New York, which is just about as far north as you can go in New York State. New York it's a very big state, and a lot of folks, when they hear New York, think New York City, Hudson Valley, and Westchester County, that kind of area. But we are well north of the Adirondack Park, about 30 minutes from the Canadian border, and just a few miles from the St. Lawrence River. We used to be classified as a Zone 3B. We've recently, within the last decade or so, been reclassified to a Zone 4. But yeah, we are pretty chilly up here.
And you said the St. Lawrence River, but it's really the St. Lawrence Seaway.
Yes.
Right,
absolutely.
which is kind of a much bigger deal.
It is,
Right.
yeah.
We both grew up here, so I don't think we realize how big of a deal it is. We would take field trips to the locks and be like, look at the boat.
Yeah.
Very cool. But it is.
And big boats.
And big
Very
boats.
big boats,
yes.
yeah.
But it is really cool. And it's really nice being able to take a day trip to Ottawa and come back.
Yeah,
And-
Ottawa's about an hour and a half from here.
Yeah.
You must get some type of climate effect from the Seaway. Would you say that's true? Or
I think
not?
we're largely removed. I think they do get a little bit of a bump. Ottawa is definitely warmer than we are here. Montreal as well. I mean, Montreal is an island surrounded by water, so slightly different story. I think we don't really get much of the climate buffer that the river provides for a lot of the rest of the St. Lawrence River Valley.
Okay, all right.
That's even the same with Lake Champlain is not that far away from us, probably 2 hours away, and there's a number of things that people in, say,
Plattsburgh.
right, that they can grow because they're right on Lake Champlain, and then we have the Adirondacks as kind of a buffer between us and Lake Champlain, and so we don't really get that cushion either, but they can grow things
Yeah.
a little bit more easily there.
Yeah, you
than we
could
can
you could
here.
do peaches in Westport, maybe in Plattsburgh, not in Potsdam, not yet. Maybe the last 2 years, this last winter definitely would have cooked any peaches that we had out there. We've killed a lot of peaches, but have yet to.
They're hard to grow. They're harder than people think.
They are for
so,
us, yeah.
You pick that little peach tree up, you better know where it's coming from and get a little bit more info. Well, let's talk about the history of the nursery, because I find that really fascinating. And I met Bill back at New York Apple Camp two summers ago now.
Yeah.
So why don't you kind of delve into it a little bit to give people an overview?
Yeah, so we are the third owners in a non-familial succession of owners of St. Lawrence Nurseries. It was started in the early 1920s by Fred Ashworth, a pretty well-known plant breeder to this day, has his name on a lot of blueberries and potatoes specifically, and he ran it kind of as more of a side gig, hobby kind of farm for a while. It wasn't his full-time job for most of his career. And then Bill MacKentley stepped into the picture in the 70s, took it from this side project, research project that it was for Fred, and made it his life, made it his livelihood for him and his wife Diana. And they ran it for 40 or so years, built it up to what it was in 2015 when they retired, and then I stepped in. It scaled back pretty dramatically in 2015. We stepped back to just apples, and I guess we did black walnuts too that first year.
Why was that?
Just for the sake of being able to manage it and handle it, because I had been working for Bill since 2011, I guess, when I was 15. And so I knew the outside field work aspect of it all very well. I'd done the yearly cycle 5 or 6 times at that point, and knew all of the field work very well, but the office side of it and the business management side of things was a lot more daunting. So decided to scale back, kept on 2 of the kind of core employees from Bill's crew.
Who are both still here.
Who are both still here
Working
10 years
outside
later.
today.
Yep. And yeah, it was the 3 of us for a couple of years, and that started in 2015, which is also when Alyssa and I started dating.
He had worked for Bill all through kind of his high school years, and then he had gone to Ranger School in Wanakina, the ESF program, and he was there for a year. And Bill had announced publicly in the 2014 catalog, I believe, that this was the retirement issue. And Connor heard that news, called Bill from Ranger School, and said, "Do you mind if I take it over?" And Bill said, "Why not? Sure, let's try it." And so
I think they were also pretty excited to have somebody continue this thing that was, they had taken it and built it up to this, if not world renowned, definitely country renowned nursery with a lot of very important genetics that shouldn't get lost.
Right. And Bill's still very involved. He just turned 79 in January. Hangs out in the barn, and he's still breeding chestnut. He keeps busy.
He has gone full experimentation mode now. So we've got the nursery proper over here, and then we've got like the St. Lawrence Nursery's experiment station on the other side of town.
For the first 5 years that Connor was running the nursery, we're in year 10 under Hardiman management. But for the first 5 years, we were working out of Bill's backyard, and Bill and Di very graciously let us do that. But their vegetable garden getting bigger, their grandkids always being over. His daughter lives right across the road. So they kind of needed their space, and we were, that first year, 2015, was very small. And then, as Connor got more experience, our crew got a little bit bigger. Yep. We needed more space. And so in 2020, we decided to start looking for a piece of property. And I've always had some kind of off-farm employment, a couple, different jobs here and there. And so I'd actually gone to a job interview at Big Spoon Kitchen, which is a catering business right across the street. And I casually mentioned to the people who were interviewing me, we might be looking for a piece of property if you happen to know one. And Will, who's now one of our good friends and business partners, said, "Well, I'm looking to buy the farm across the road." And we said, "Oh, okay. Well, sure." And he said, "Do you want to, go in on that with us?" And we're like, "Yeah, why not?" This farm and this farmhouse was actually my great-great-uncle's farm back in like the 70s. And so it's kind of come full circle, and it's been really special because my grandpa, my great uncle, my dad all grew up milking cows in the barn where we now pack trees. And so it's really cool. It kind of makes me feel like my family farming story is also a part of the St. Lawrence Nursery story. Mm-hmm. So it's all just a kind of a picture perfect story. And so we actually split the property with our friend Will. He owns the barn and the house because at that time we were 23 looking for a piece of property.
Yeah, we were pretty much just looking for tillable land with
a
water.
Field somewhere. And so it's worked out really wonderfully. We get the land. We have like a collaborative use of the barn. He let us build our cooler on the side of the barn. We kind of have stuff planted here, there, and everywhere, and we work really well with, his business. We put on events together every summer. We're doing a big barn renovation together, so it's
and you have the wassail.
Right, yes.
Yep.
That's an event that's kind of definitely growing.
Yeah, we've done that twice now. This January was our second one, but we do like a music and food series out in Party in the Orchard series we started last year. We've done a couple workshops here, so.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Does that mean that you took on the brand name of the St. Lawrence Nursery? And what other part of the business did you take on? Because you're not at the original nursery.
That is possibly the most unique part of the way the business has been handed down. When Bill came on the scene, Fred eventually made the decision to just hand the business off to Bill. Bill had kind of taken it from hobby to fully fledged business, and then he ran it for 40 years, and I learned from him. And when I wanted to step in, Bill very graciously decided to hand it off free of charge to us. And so eventually that is the plan for us, to be able to find somebody that will be as excited about it as we are, be able to give them something cool to get them going and keep the nursery alive for hopefully another 100 or so years and more if it works out.
Yeah, that's just a tremendous thing to do. And that we do see that a little bit happening with farmers looking for young folks coming up, the next generation, to take that on. And when you actually hear that happening, it's such a thrill.
Right.
It is.
And critical.
Right.
Because who could get farm?
No.
It wouldn't have worked out in a conventional purchase sense.
Right.
I don't think it would have been. Yeah.
But anybody who knows Bill MacKentley knows he's not a conventional kind kind of guy.
But you gotta love him for
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Boy, he's
Right.
amazing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like he's said it several times to me, but his philosophy on the whole thing is like, love is what makes the world go round, and we need more of it. So why don't we just gift things more so?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's our plan, eventually, find somebody and keep the ball rolling.
Mm-hmm. Did you both come from farming families?
I did, but you were just kind of a
Yeah, I've
wicked
always
outdoorsy
liked
kid.
plants. My grandfather worked for DEC. He was an aquatic biologist from as long back as I can remember. We were building trails in the woods and always teaching me my dendrology and making sure I had all my natural resources knowledge locked in from a very young age. And then I joined Bill's New York State horticulture identification team through 4-H when I was like 14, I guess, and that was kind of my window into the apple growing world and all that. And
Tell them about your award.
oh yeah, Bill had, I believe, the most successful horticulture team in the country for many years running, many national champions. I went to a couple national competitions with Bill. My first one was in San Diego, and I got third place, second place. I'm trying to remember.
I think you were third place.
Yeah, I think I was third place.
Ranking
Yeah.
horticulture identification team.
Yeah, so
That's
definitely,
pretty cool.
Thanks to Bill MacKentley.
yeah,
Dang.
some
Wow.
heavy nerd territory, but it definitely caught the bug. I caught the bug, and here we are. Yeah.
Fantastic. And it does provide a specific niche for trees. So let's get into that. What is St. Lawrence Nurseries basically renowned for?
Yeah, our whole thing going back to the beginning has been cold hardy, and largely as a function of just where we are. Potsdam is cold, and even though we've been reclassified to a zone 4 now, we still get cold spikes. We don't necessarily get the 50 below that we were getting in the 70s, but we had 34 below this past winter, and it only takes one night at a zone 3 temperature to really test everything you've got in the ground. So,
It's also key that we can grow things, because even if it doesn't get that cold here, we send trees to Alaska and northern Minnesota and Michigan and
Right.
all of these cold places, the high plains of Wyoming and, that kind of thing. So we need to have stuff that will not only grow here, but will also grow in the Peninsula Highway in Alaska.
Yeah.
So-
Is it all North America?
mostly, yeah, it becomes a paperwork headache to ship things out of the country, and there is a nursery doing a fairly similar thing to what we're doing, just like 3 hours across the border in Canada, and they kind of have the Canadian market. We have the US, and that works out really well because we don't really compete with each other,
Right.
but we collaborate a whole lot.
Right. We just went to visit them last year. We reference, we email, if someone emails them, but they're from the US, we go back and forth all the time.
Well, let's give them a shout out.
Oh, yeah.
The Hardy Fruit Tree Nursery up in just north of Montreal in Rawdon,
I think it's Rodden.
Rawdon, Quebec. Yeah, they're great. Learned a lot from them, and it's a great relationship.
Eric, who started that nursery, is very good friends with Bill and has come to visit Bill several times. There's a picture of Bill and Eric and Connor on our fridge in the office. But they're wonderful
Lots of
people.
variety trading, lots of just good collaboration.
Yes.
But we stick mostly to the U.S. just because we have a decent customer base here. I guess we don't really need to reach outside the U.S. We have sent like big shipments to Mongolia, Iceland.
You just did a signwood exchange with someone in Iceland last.
Yeah,
My goodness,
occasionally things will happen, but it kind of has to be either exciting or a big order that's going to be worth doing all the paperwork for.
What makes a plant developed into being a cold hardy plant, for somebody like myself who doesn't totally understand this?
Yeah.
How does that come together? What does that?
Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty around that concept in general, just like what makes a given apple variety hardier than another given apple variety. They're not that much different. There's a lot of, and I'm sure Bill would go right to the fourth phase of water on this, but
The fourth phase of water?
phase of water, and I'm not gonna do it justice because it's a very complicated idea
Okay.
that I think does hold water, so to speak. But in short, we don't 100% know what makes an apple tree given variety hardier than another variety, and a lot of it just comes down to trialing and testing and pushing boundaries and kind of figuring out what works.
And thankfully, we had like 95 years of that experimentation that was gifted to us by Fred and by Bill. And so we have their whole database of trees, 250 varieties of apples.
And that comes down to, you have a lot of good data on genetics and what works well in certain places, but when it comes down to the why is Adanac so much hardier than a Grimes Golden? Not 100% sure.
Okay.
There's some physiological difference in there.
The history. You have the data based on the lineage of the bit.
Right.
Itself, right?
Trial and error.
And we're still trying to expand that. Our friend Lee from Pierpont Cider, he got a bunch of signwood 2 years ago from a lot of different farms in the Finger Lakes. I know Eve's Cidery was one of them, and a variety of other people, but a whole bunch of cider varieties that have not typically been able to be grown in Potsdam and
or haven't even been tested in Potsdam. And that was, I think, my main excitement around that is a lot of these were wild trees found in the Finger Lakes area. They don't necessarily have the super cold hardy genetics that we're used to looking for, but if they haven't been tried here, we don't know.
So now we have a whole line of orchard trees over on the far side of the orchard that we're
and we had a pretty decent test winter. I mean, 34 below isn't crazy, but it's something to throw at these Finger Lakes trees.
That's a pretty normal winter here, 34.
Yeah, I mean that's
below zero.
The 2 winters prior to that, we definitely didn't come close to that. But last winter was like the first real winter in a couple of years, and it went to 34 below, which is what we generally expect. You generally expect in the 30 belows
a couple of
times.
Is that because of the elevation here? I mean, we're not that high.
No, we're like 500 feet. Potsdam is about 500.
But something about this location that gets that cold.
It does, yeah.
That's colder than, I used to work at Killington Ski Resort over in Vermont.
For sure.
Biggest hill on the East Coast for skiing. And I don't remember it getting that cold.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. I mean, we've got our friend over, David Freed at Elmore Roots, was just here yesterday, and we were kind of comparing notes. Another nursery that we work with a lot, Perfect Circle over in Vermont. Both of them are kind of right near Montpelier, which is a little south of here, but they can grow stuff that we can't dream of here. So, it's a chilly little pocket for sure.
And was the original site of the St. Lawrence Nursery selected because of that idea?
Where Fred lived.
It was originally...
That's where he lived, and he thought I should be testing cold hardy plants.
Exactly. Okay. It all came out of being able to grow stuff that worked well for him. And then, he was a very prolific and scientific guy, so he ran with it.
His original farm was in Hubleton, which is about 40 minutes from here, but still very cold. And the cool thing about that is that he had a number of trees either in his yard or in his friend's yard, and then that's the trees that we go collect our nuts from, is those original walnuts. Mother trees. And his daughter now lives in the house where some of those trees are, which is really cool.
Yeah. Very cool.
We show up with all of our bags and our little nut rollers.
So let's give listeners a sense of what the services are that you actually provide, because you're obviously doing experimentation here, but somebody looking at your catalog, what are they looking for?
We do some wholesale, like people who have greenhouses and that kind of thing, but for the most part, most of our customers are just backyard growers. Our average order is like 5 apple trees, people who are kind of just starting out. And there are people who have ordered from us for 50 years and they get 1 or 2 trees every year to add to their orchard, which is really cool. But, we do apple trees like we've been talking about. We also do nut trees. We do a variety of different berry bushes, native plants. This year we did strawberries and asparagus for the first time, so we keep trying to kind of build up our inventory of plants every year. But we also do, not super often, but we do custom grafting for some people. If they have an apple tree that this is my grandmother's apple tree, and they don't necessarily know how to graft it themselves, but they're about to lose the property, they can send us signwood. Yeah,
we'll walk them through how to cut their signwood and package it and send it to us.
And then hopefully in like 3 years we'll be able to send 5 or 10 trees back to them.
I see. So you're the one nursing those baby trees.
Right.
the
Yeah.
little-
Yep.
We throw them right out in the nursery beds in between all of our other
Uh-huh.
regular varieties, and we usually just have their phone number on the little yellow tag. And in a couple of years, I'll call them and say, here's how many trees you got. How many do you want?
Oh my God, that almost brings tears to my eyes. I mean, think about folks who would be wanting to preserve
Oh
something.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's-
talked to
Their fans
someone
want, like,
on the phone for like 2 hours a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about his grandfather's farm and his apple trees. He's out in Montana, and we were both in tears by the end of the phone conversation because I was talking about my grandpa and his grandpa, and he's like a 75-year-old man, and we're both just like,
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
it's
It
funny
is.
because trees are way more than just the trees.
Yeah,
And it's-
there's a lot of emotion wrapped up there, or there can be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, once you actually open your eyes and see what's before you,
Yeah.
you can't help but. I just saw that apple tree that was in the Amherst Common in Massachusetts that would have been there when Emily Dickinson was there.
Wow. Yeah.
And I would always check it out when it was in full bloom, and it spirals up, and it's a hollow cavity in the inside, and it's twisting up, and this amazing blossom.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Oh,
Oh no.
I don't really know what happened to
Oh
it,
my
but
God.
I'm actually surprised,
That
you
it-
know,
yeah.
because people don't realize that tree could go on and on, actually, even with that hollow cavity.
Totally.
Because the outer layer is still alive. So,
Oh.
you know, and you think Emily Dickinson probably went and
Walked by that on her way to the store or
something.
whatever.
Yeah, no doubt.
With her
Because the
basket of-
cemetery's right there where she was buried. So that
Wow.
family had been near that apple tree,
Wow.
That's wild.
you know, and other people too. But, you
Right.
know,
Yeah,
we
but
have a
Right.
celebrity poet.
I
So, yeah.
love that. I love that. And that's, I mean, that really, it ties into kind of one of our key things too, is like we graft, all of our apples go on standard rootstock. So they're going to be
Okay.
around for
Only
as long as...
standard.
We
yes,
only do
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
That
yeah.
leads into the cold hardiness because we kind of touched on why varieties might be cold hardy, but the thing that really makes sure that it'll live is the rootstock that we grafted onto. So we do seedling standard rootstock for all of our pears, plums, and apples.
Yes. Yeah. For the function of cold hardiness. But I also really like the fact that these trees will be around for, a very long time, potentially 100, 200 years, if anybody's kind of paying attention to them a little bit.
Well, that's the thing that always I'm a little bit curious about, because you see an apple tree, you plant it, and you're like really gung ho, and then folks get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
You know, how do I start pruning it? When do I prune it? And yeah, all those the factors that come in.
Yeah.
Is that part of your service too, or is it more of a
I mean,
coaching? You're not
yes.
doing workshops at this point.
We do a couple grafting workshops every year. Joel Howie from Canton Apples, who we'll talk with later, he does a pruning workshop every year. We just moved our whole operation just 4 years ago, and so our orchard out here is still kind of a little baby orchard. The big orchard's over at Bill's. Maybe someday. We just pruned this orchard here for the first time this winter.
Okay.
And so, which was very special because I've never gotten a real proper pruning workshop. I just usually take my parents' apples and chop them up and make it work. But maybe someday we would have people come and prune here, but it's kind of little at this point, and then
Yeah, I mean, we definitely walk people through a lot of stuff based on individual questions, and we've got a very extensive planting guide that Bill and I put together years ago that goes out with all the order. So that covers a lot of those questions, but I mean, we get a lot of questions, and I feel like we're,
right.
yeah.
I don't even want to know if I want to say this, but sometimes we will go and help if it's a person that we know and maybe they're older, maybe they really don't know what they're doing. We can help them plant their apple trees and stuff. And we have a couple of guys on our crew who kind of as a side gig go out and do pruning and that kind of thing. But we only have probably 10% of our customer base is actually local. And so 90% of the people we never meet or see.
Occasionally Montana's out there.
Right, we get pictures, which is great, and we've gone and visited a couple of people. We've done a couple cross-country road trips, and we've seen people
Stop at various customers' places, which is fun.
It is fun.
Now, has that business model remained the same? Was that true with Bill and Fred?
I think Fred was a lot more locally based, and then that kind of started to change towards the end, and then Bill and I took it to more of a they had a more formal mail order process, but
And when the transition happened, I think a lot of people locally, because the previous location was kind of on a back road. We are right on Route 56.
Yes,
We're less
that
than
has
a
been a
quarter
shift.
mile from the college, so we're way more in the public eye, so
We
to
definitely
speak.
have a lot more stop by.
Well, you're right next to a university.
Right,
Yes.
So that's
yes.
Right.
huge.
And so
Yep.
we have a lot of people who walk by, a lot of people who see the sign and go, "Oh, what's going on?" When we were building the fence here, the number of people who were like pulling over, "What are you doing? What is this?" There were rumors, giraffes, prison.
Well, just so folks know, looking outside the window here, you might be able to hear the rumble of the cars going by, but it looks like you have locusts. Is that locust or
Cedar. Yep.
Cedar,
All
okay, cedar. Coming up from the ground, going up, they look like they're 12 feet.
Yeah, they were 14-foot posts sunk all 3 feet in the ground, so it's about 11 feet, sometimes higher. The poles are a little higher, but yeah, the fencing goes 11 feet.
It's 3/4 of a mile of fencing that goes around the property.
I'm sure there was a lot of explaining. People don't realize that deer can really
Oh,
Well,
jump.
yeah, that was the thing is everybody thought we were building the fence to keep things in, but that is, the opposite of our goal here, yeah.
A great education. We had buffaloes, living in actually Amherst or Hadley, and I learned that they could jump 10 feet.
Oh my god.
Buffalo?
A buffalo
Holy
can
cow.
jump a fence that's 10 feet. I don't know if they're knocking it down while they're jumping,
Yeah.
but I just
Take
thought,
the fence with them.
Oh my god.
yeah, so they had massive fences, 10 feet.
Wow. Made
Can
of
you,
cinder blocks.
what can stop a buffalo? That's like
At that point, you just have to stand back.
fencing in an elephant.
Right.
Yeah, that's serious, but yeah, it's part of the fun. So you have these cultivars that you're working with. You aren't just doing cider apples, but I'm wondering if cider is kind of you're nodding your head as I'm
Yeah.
speaking.
Oh yeah, definitely the last 5 or 6 years, maybe even a little longer, but I feel like the last 5 or 6 years, it's definitely the cider apple demand has shot
Increased.
up. Yeah.
And how do you classify cider apples?
There's your classic bitter sharps, bitter sweets. We've got a lot of russets that fall into those categories. I am not a cider specialist. We are friends with a lot of cider
We're
people,
cider
so
adjacent, we like to say.
it's
Yeah,
rubbed
that's
off
so
pretty
nice.
significantly. But yeah, I mean, just we try to keep our finger on the pulse of what's in demand and what will do well for us. Lee and Dan have definitely been very instrumental in kind of opening our eyes to.
Right, and that's
All
Lee
of
from Pure
those.
Point and Dan Gallagher from Frosty Twig.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So with that, is there a key apple variety that people are looking for the cider makers? Or the first and the second and the third? There must be.
I'm sure there are. I think the key, especially when you're talking about growing in cold / increasingly volatile climates, diversity. It sounds a little trite to say, but diversity is key. And we have 250 varieties of apples, so I beat that drum a lot. But in terms
What
of...
do you mean by that, Connor? Like in diversity in the orchard so that you're not just relying upon a
Right.
dabinet because it might not grow well in not only the temperature but the soil.
Right. I guess I'm coming at it more from a climate perspective and just volatile frost timelines.
Yeah.
And in that sense, it's just the more variety you can have. There's a lot of cider apples to choose from. Just have a lot of them out there, and you're bound to get something even on the worst of years. Bill's orchard across town is in full production, has been for decades at this point, but there's virtually no duplicate trees in that 120 tree orchard. And even last year, when there were essentially no apples around.
Like bad
I mean,
apple
a couple, wild roadside trees you would find loaded, but there were apples in Bill's orchard, and I think that's just a function of having so much to choose from. So yeah, there are definitely very tough, hard, or rather cold hardy cider varieties that are specifically good for cold climates, but I think if you're trying to prepare for volatility, diversity is your best insulation there.
That's a key with the rootstock that we use too, because each of those is a seedling. So let's say there's a disease that goes through, it's less likely to kill all of your trees.
Right. All of our trees are grafted on Seedling Antonovka or Seedling Baccata for the crabs. Rather than having clonal rootstock, if you have something that comes through that really likes Bud 118 and you've got an orchard on Bud 118, you've got a little buffer there, a little genetic variation to kind of shake things up. And I think that's super important for having reliable harvests every year. Just have a wide variety.
So there isn't one that people keep on asking for. You know, I'm really looking for that. Like, because in my experience, you know, the cool apple that everybody wants is Dabinet.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But
we have like golden russet and
golden russet's a classic. Dabinet is kind of on the edge for us. We've made it through a few years, and it seems to have held up through this 34 below. I think getting it to fruit might be a challenge up here just with the length of the season, but we're pushing on it. We're trying. Yeah, I don't know. In terms of pointing at one specific variety, there's a lot of russets that are very popular.
Jordan russet.
Chestnut crab always.
Russet.
But yeah, I'm having a hard
are
time
there
pointing to
varieties then, with that said, varieties that you don't recommend for people to even approach in a cold climate?
I'm definitely not going to recommend Dabinet to somebody anywhere north of here, even
Greenland.
here. Right? Yeah, exactly. Or Alaska, or even high elevation. And high elevation gets weird too because you can have 6,000 feet well south of here that most of the year they could grow a lot of stuff that we couldn't grow here, but their growing season is so abbreviated that they need pretty specific varieties. Harrison, yeah, we don't have Harrison up here.
Interesting.
Yet.
Wow.
Yeah, which is it's a crab too, so we should probably push on that because crabs do tend to be a little bit more resilient. Yeah.
Newtown Pippin.
Haven't tried Newtown.
I thought that was one of the ones in Lee's experiment bunch.
That's interesting. So
he's got so in Lee's experimental station out on the far side of the fence is Roxbury russet. I feel like Newtown Pippin was one.
Yeah, we did bring in a bunch of those
orange pippin on there.
Yeah, the more kind of conventional.
Egremont russet.
Okay.
Yeah, like I think of them as like Finger Lakes apples because that's what everyone down there is growing. But they're cider apples. They're the hot cider apples right now, and a lot of them haven't been tried up here.
Like Arkansas Black is one that people ask for a lot.
Yeah, and I'm skeptical of that. I think we grafted a few for Lee, and I'm kind of skeptical, but we'll try.
Perry pears.
Perry pears, yes. Bill has several massive. They were planted by Fred when Fred first moved to build what is now Bill's home property, but they're just massive wild Siberian pears, which make amazing perry. But as far as
Siberian pears,
yes, just Usuriensis seedlings that
like what we use for
out.
rootstock.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, basically, yeah, exactly. Just rootstock they're now like 40-foot trees that are.
And they're fruiting and.
They're fruiting. They make amazing perry, and I mean, yeah, to bite into one of these pears is
so
not an experience.
To be clear, because I know I might get questions on this. So these were seedlings
From presumably, what do they grow Usuriensis from? Usually, I think McDermott is a common named cultivar that they grow the seed from, but they're all seedlings. They're very similar. There's not a ton of variation there, but
that Fred started the seedling.
Right.
Okay,
Yep.
so he got a pear somewhere, planted the seed, let it go, and was just kind of testing, and then whatever continued on.
Yeah, those are just kind of flukes that are. I think the Siberian rootstock in and of itself is a great option for perry pears. But as far as like named cultivars, we've got John, David, Olea. Those are the three that come to mind. They're all very old, very unpleasant to try to eat.
Kind we love.
I think we may be coming into a bunch more of those too, because as I was mentioning, the cyanwood swapping with hardy fruit tree up in Canada, we've got like 40, maybe 50, even more Syrian pears from Russia and Ukraine that we're trialing. They all are growing like crazy out there because they're bulletproof. No idea what the fruit is going to be like, but we've got a lot of new ones in the ground that could potentially have a lot of potential.
Right, because a lot of those like Russian varieties aren't necessarily super great for fresh eating, at least as from like the American palate, but they very well may be good for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Any Malus subursii from wild apple stock?
We don't grow any. Always looking for new wild varieties to graft, but yeah, we don't grow any.
Yeah, because I imagine that they'd be very cold hardy.
Probably, yeah.
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 But yeah, there's only a few folks in the country working with that. And the most I know is kind of out in Ohio, of all places. So, yeah.
Yeah, I have not explored that very much.
All right. Well, it sounds like you got your hands full here. So, there's only so much. And, 250 apple varieties when you have over 14,000 counting, right?
Yeah,
It's kind of hard to keep up with that.
it is.
One of my questions was, what does stand out for apples and pears, but you also do nuts. So I'm kind of curious about that too.
Yeah, we do a few nuts. We do black walnuts is kind of our big thing because we're a good 100 miles north of their normal range, and nuts was a big thing that Fred was into, and he had half a dozen cultivars that do very well up here, and that he grafted and that we still collect from over in Hubleton. We do all seedling nuts. We don't do any nut tree grafting. That gets very complicated, or more complicated than apples in any case. So we do all seedling nut trees. There's not as much genetic variation between a seedling nut as you would get planting a seedling apple. They tend to be a lot closer to the parent. But we do black walnuts. We've got half a dozen varieties of black walnuts, butternuts, wart nuts, or butter heart, whichever you prefer. It's a cross between butternut and heart nut. We've got one fairly hardy heart nut that we collect from over in Fort Covington, which is kind of a fluke up here, but it seems to do well. So we've added heart nuts in the last few years. I put a warning on that for some of our more northern customers, but it does well here in Potsdam.
And the hazelbirds.
And hazelnuts, yeah. So hazelnut crossed with filbert, cross done by Fred way back in the day that we've just kept rolling with.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to read this question, but then I'm going to try to break it down a little bit. And it's on balancing and preserving heirloom varieties versus the regionally adapted varieties.
Yeah.
Is there a line that you don't cross through? Because you could kind of go everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
And I imagine that is part of it. Like, how do you hone it in to stay on the path? And what exactly is that path in your business model? Or is that something that's always evolving?
It is. It's kind of a struggle because, I mean, I like, it's a very good question. I like being this kind of genetic bank, but that's not always necessarily what makes the most business sense or is the most efficient. So there's a little bit of a trade-off there, and like trying to hone in exactly, how many of these trees do we graft that aren't super popular but are an important genetic resource to keep around. You don't want to lose the variety.
Right. I feel like you'll be grafting sometimes. You'll be like, such and such. This is up next. Terrible apple.
Oh no.
Yeah. So there's some opinions, but there's certain things that you just don't want to lose. And so it can be a bit of a give and take there. I'm a sucker for anything local that people bring me that has a story. It will tend to wind up in the catalog eventually if it has any. It's fortunate that we live in Potsdam, I think, because the cold does keep us a little boxed in, like you're saying.
That's true.
I mean, if we were open to all 14,000 varieties, I don't know what we would do. Right. But yeah, we do have a little, that cornice is a little, beyond that, it's cold hardy, and then if it grows in Potsdam, it's,
Right. And since we grow so much more things than just apples, it also becomes just like people are like, oh, can you do witch hazel? Can we do nutbarks? Can we do asparagus? Can we do strawberries? How about rhubarb? How about flowers? How about you guys sell flowers? And then we don't have to go to Agway. It's like there's two.
Do you have sheep?
Yeah.
There's two. Well, yeah. We're thinking about getting goats. We have chickens now. Like it gets very big very quickly.
Yeah.
And how much do you want to take on?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a concern.
It is. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess I don't have a great answer for like how we kind of keep a handle on it.
Like our sanity?
Yeah. I mean,
That's the limiting factor is our sanity. We also have a rather small staff. We have like 4 or 5, 6 people, sometimes 7 during the really busy shipping season, but you kind of have to balance like how much can we physically, mentally, spiritually take on.
Yes.
As a married couple attempting to run a business.
Right. And then, you just kind of exist. Can I ask you about your yearly calendar? I'm just kind of curious. Can you bring us through that, starting winter, spring, summer, fall, and And right now this is running
drew it.
with the actual calendar. Here we go.
So, I did kind of a drawing of all of our tasks. Where do you want to start?
I feel like it kind of starts with grafting.
Right.
That's so usually we start grafting about the last week of January, first week of February, and that takes 4 or 6 weeks, month and a half or so, give or take. And then usually by mid-March we're done grafting, and then we move into shipping season, which is when we start packing up and sending out all the orders that came in from starting in October until mid-April is our order window. So yeah, finish grafting, then on to shipping. That's another
there's pruning.
We do take a few days to go out and prune Bill's orchard and now our orchard.
You know, I'm going to be asking where there's vacation here too. Yeah. Keep on going. Keep on going.
And then, so shipping, that's another 6 or 8 weeks of just everybody, assembly line style, packing up
The
orders.
shipping alone must be...
This
It is definitely the most grueling
It's the most
part.
grueling
Logistical.
part. Yeah, we've
it's-
always had... Every year we've gotten a little bit bigger, and we've always had mostly just Connor and I in the office. Connor has moved out to being pretty much totally in the barn, and as I've broken away from some of my other off-farm employment, I've been in here full-time. And even this year it got to be to a point where I called my mom, my dear sweet mom, and she and my brother came in and helped me every afternoon.
When
just
you gotta call family,
right,
you gotta call
just-
family.
Right, and that's like kind of the family farm aspect of it.
Sure.
Is, she helped us do shipping labels and all kinds of stuff this year. But it's an organizational nightmare sometimes.
Yeah.
And thankfully we have staff who again worked for Bill. They know how it works, and
that's-
pretty much everybody has been
Really
there
through
shipping.
it several times
Right.
now. So
Right.
that's hugely helpful. But yeah, that's kind of the chaos part of the year for sure. And then just about a week or two ago we stopped shipping and then started planting. So yeah,
Worrying about frost. Or do you set up anything for frost, or it's...
Pretty much don't worry about it. Ideally, everything that's going in is still dormant. So frost is not a concern for dormant plants.
Right. The high priority is the grafts, getting those in the ground
Yep.
because they've been hanging out in the cooler. They did a short callousing session in the office. We moved them back out to our giant walk-in cooler.
Kind of put them on pause
Right.
until we're done packing
And
everything
then
up.
it's sort of a transition. We have a temporary greenhouse outside we move them into, and then Connor separates them all out into buckets, and Adam and Kyle put them in the ground one graft at a time for 25,000 apples and pears and plums.
Apples,
Really
pears, and
is
plums. Yeah.
great for the back.
Yeah.
You haven't done raised beds yet.
It's a lot of raised beds.
That would be a lot. I mean, how many are we looking at being in the ground at any given year?
Grafted wise, there's about 25,000 grafted trees,
Wow.
and then
Wow.
untold numbers of other stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
I do the math every year, and I think it's usually somewhere around 70,000 plants that get handled coming in and out every year.
Right.
I have a hard time keeping up with. What cider is that? What blend was that in the yeast? And that's only maybe 3 carboys or something,
Yeah,
25,000.
lots of tags. So many tags.
Tags and
tags?
stakes
Yeah.
and
And stakes. Marking.
organization
Yep.
and spreadsheets of how many bundles of this do we have and why is there a bundle missing, and
Is that how you
this-
separate some of your roles? And what exactly are your roles?
A lot of the office stuff overlaps. I do most of my office stuff is customer service. I spend
Communication,
most of my
yeah.
time doing communication stuff. A lot of the technical things like bookkeeping and the spreadsheets and ordering and all of that, that's Connor. I just do the emails, the voicemails, the social media, the Facebook messages, the Instagram messages, all of that kind of taking pictures. I try to go outside and I do an actual in the dirt thing every day.
Nice,
Yesterday,
nice.
I did the garden out front.
Key.
Yeah,
Important.
yeah, very important.
And timing's important too, of the stages, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, so yes, planting the grafts and then planting back anything that didn't sell, planting out any replants. Sometimes we'll pick things out of the ground when we dig in the fall. It's too small. We put them back in the ground. Any cuttings, any plants, new plants, all of that kind of stuff goes in the ground. Everything gets mulched with newspaper and either wood chips and or leaves. And then fertilizing, composting. My dad has a 200 head Angus farm about a quarter mile that way, so we get all of the cow poop that we could possibly want.
I was wondering about
Yes.
that.
Yeah,
That's a very
and
good system.
we have a friend who owns a coffee roastery. We're really good friends with the people who have the coffee shop. We have a friend who owns
Love
a brewery in about an hour away. So every couple of weeks we go out to dinner in Saranac Lake and get all of, shout out to Hex and Hop, their spent grain, and bring it back here and add it to our ever compounding compost pile. Spread that out.
Gosh.
We also do like a foliar fish emulsion that we spray pretty much for the good chunk of the beginning of the summer.
First week of July or so, yeah.
Right, so that's part of the schedule, and then it's cutting the rubbers off of the grafted fruit trees. So
Lots
all
of-
of the rubber bands that we graft them with, we cut those all off. We have to kind of prune them and make them look pretty, and then it's like weeding.
When does the weeding start?
Well,
Should start now.
Should start now. Yeah, we'll get on that in a couple
In
weeks.
May.
Yeah. But yeah, and that goes until mid or late August, and then things kind of start to slow down. Usually, we have kind of a slow couple weeks in the beginning of September where the weeds aren't really growing, but the trees are also not ready to be dug yet. And so we kind of usually try to come up with some project.
There's usually some kind of special project. Like there was the one year where we built the fence, and then this year we're doing a big barn renovation with Will. So we'll be working on that. We usually have a couple of our big events in September. We've gone on a couple road trips in September because that's when it gets
So that's
chill.
your kind of chill time is
A
September.
little bit more. September and then kind of
and
Christmas time.
December, second part of
A
December.
little bit different than the cider maker, where cider makers are now on.
Yeah.
Right.
And picking and pressing and getting ready for all that juice to come in.
And eventually this little orchard we have out there will become a producing apple orchard, and that September window might close on us.
Does that mean that you would be...
Well, thankfully we have a couple of really good cider maker friends, so hopefully we'll be able to interest them in that. We're hoping to maybe put like a farm stand. We don't have a storefront here.
Yeah.
So anybody who comes does like a by appointment, or they show up and has to come find us somewhere. But if we have a little farm stand where we can sell apples, I'd love to do tasting days in September where people can come try an apple and then they know which one that they want to have in their yard. Yeah. So I think that would be really fun. And then we have to kind of wait around until the frost happens. And then we can start digging.
Yeah, early frost is a good thing. Yeah, because we start digging as soon as leaves are off.
And what are you digging for?
So we're digging,
Just holes. Just holes. I'm like, what are they digging? What?
We're digging our...
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Digging the trees out of the
ground.
Digging
everything out of the ground, and that starts in, usually like early November after a good hard frost. Leaves fall, then we can pull the trees out of the ground, and they all go in our big cooler all winter until we start packing them up. Usually we finish digging like right as the snow is starting to pile up.
And
a week or two before Christmas.
In that time as well, and then everybody gets a couple weeks off around Christmas time. But in that same window around Thanksgiving, when the crew is digging, Connor and I go on our signwood collection adventure, where we get to we kind of bop around our orchard. Again, it's new, so this was the first year we got any significant signwood off of it. And then usually we spend a lot of time over at Bill's orchard collecting signwood from all over the different varieties.
Yeah. Which is kind of a fun job. You go to visit all your friends.
Right. And most people who are grafting would collect their signwood right before they graft, and then this is just the time that we have to do it. So we preserve it. We dip the whole bundle of signwood in wax. Yeah. And then put it in
People hear that we're collecting signwood in November and they're like, what are you doing? But it's when we have time, so.
Right.
Yeah, makes sense.
And we usually have so much snow by the time January grafting rolls around that trying to traipse through the snow would be difficult. Yeah.
Is that a little bit of time where you could kind of step away and
Yes, usually we get like Christmas to mid-January. There's like three-ish weeks that are kind of
good.
It's still a lot of office work because people are in full ordering at that point.
Yeah.
Well, September is also when we do the catalog. We have to put the catalog together.
Oh yeah, that does happen then too.
Oh boy.
There's always something.
Yeah. Well, this is farming life, you know.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious what happens to all the apples at Bill's orchard.
So over the course of about 3 years, pulled out everything that was saleable size. We would dig it, move it into our cooler, and then move it out. And that took 2 or 3 years to get all of the nursery trees out of there. And his orchard is still there. We prune it every year. And
But it must be producing a lot of fruit.
Right, and
it
so
does,
he
yeah.
he has a giant cider press actually,
Oh.
and so it used to be a
A
thing.
giant cider press. What does that mean?
it's
like
just a giant
Is
homemade.
it a basket press?
It's a no. It's got a. I don't even know what.
It's got a
Hydraulic?
Carhartt.
It's a
leg.
40-ton screw
Carhartt
press.
A
what?
Carhartt like a jumpsuit leg that you funnel the
It's
apples.
very, very
homemade.
homemade.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my god.
yeah.
He has like overalls that he uses one leg
As a
as
funnel.
a shoe.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
It works. It works very
Yeah.
well.
Oh, I mean,
Right.
why buy one if you can make it out
Right.
of your exterior car? So that's the little
The
shoe.
yeah,
Yep.
and it's a
Yeah, and then we've got
Hydraulic,
we've
or
got.
is
I
it
think
crank?
it usually stacks 4 or 5 leaves high, and we've got the ash. What are they called? I should have my cider terminology down for this. They're like the
slats.
The slats,
Yeah.
yeah. And we do like 4 or 5 levels. We haven't done this in a couple of years. But he's got big electric grinder up top.
Okay.
And then a 40-ton massively overpowered screw press that you.
Okay.
I mean, he
crank
and Di
down.
are true homesteaders. Like
Yes, I get
they
it.
really use everything. They make their own cider.
They're
do
from a
grow
certain era,
most
right?
of their
Homesteading
Well,
that was very
Di-
popular.
Di grew up in New Jersey and moved up here and decided like that's what she wanted to do.
Yeah.
And she's like the most down to earth homesteading kind of lady you can imagine. You know, she's milked every single day of her life since she
Wow.
left New Jersey,
Yeah.
like
My
50 years ago. But yeah, so they use all of it. They've got like giant tubs of vinegar down in their basement and stuff. So they use it all. Yeah.
Very cool.
We're not quite that crunchy, but maybe, we'll definitely eat our fair share of apples.
A nice model to have going
Yeah,
on
for
there.
sure.
It definitely was an era of going back to the land when
Yeah.
they were
Yeah,
young.
no, and they were in the height of that for sure.
And it's kind of sad that we're losing part of that actually
I
because
think we're seeing we're losing
seeing
that
some
generation, but I think
Yeah.
we're seeing a new. I feel like maybe not like right directly in Potsdam, but especially like in the Adirondacks and the
Okay.
Hudson Valley, there is like the movement of younger
yeah, I feel
people.
like you've kind of got your finger on that pulse with the
Yeah.
social media. Yeah. I feel like I see a lot of
Yeah.
it with people who are trying to go back to the land, trying to grow stuff. And that was a fear of ours for a long time. For the first couple of years that we were running it, because we were working off of Bill's database. And a lot of people who had bought from Bill and then had bought from Fred, and so they were older, and we were like, how are we going to skew our customer base? Because like we love them to death, but they're not going to be around forever.
Right.
So how do we skew our customer base to a younger
another generation.
generation.
The next generation.
And so that's been a lot of work with like, I don't know, just trying to.
I think the social media has been a huge part of that
Yeah.
though, because that
That's
was nothing.
mainstream.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was something that it was something I knew I should be doing, but
Like
priorities.
we don't have any like we don't have any huge following by any means,
No,
but like we
compared
do.
to 3 years ago, you've like massively upped that game.
But it's
Well done.
Yeah, but it's nice having I don't know. We do a lot with our own Chamber of Commerce. We're in the Adirondack Harvest kind of Chamber
Yeah.
of Commerce. We went to a NOFA convention.
That makes sense,
the
yeah.
cider roundtable in the Berkshires. We try
Right.
to stick our finger in any kind of
Yeah.
You had to keep it moving.
something we can
because
do.
that's
Right.
what you have to do. That's the way of the business. You can't
Right.
just rely on your local folks to do
Right.
that.
Yeah.
But I imagine again the university would be
Yeah.
a good
Yeah.
first
We
step.
definitely collaborate over there.
Yep.
good.
Yeah, we also have, it's a shocking amount of Amish customers. And we found an Amish magazine a couple of years ago.
Are there Amish?
There's quite a few Amish right in our county.
I was wondering
Yeah.
about that because I went by somebody who was out there with the
Right.
horses
Yeah.
on my way here.
Well, and that's one of the reasons we'll always have the mail in catalog.
Yeah.
We'll, a majority,
online.
a majority of
Right.
them, the orders come in through the website, but a large number of them still come in with a paper order form because there's a lot of people who are Amish or are older and don't use the computer or are like back to the land off-grid people.
Just don't
Yeah.
want a computer.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
they want a physical hard copy.
Right.
I get that.
But yeah, it was kind of crazy. I think our Amish customer base has kind of exploded in the last couple of years because we've tapped into this. It's kind of like Facebook. Look up Topsoil magazine because I read it cover to cover every month because I love
Good
it.
tip.
But it's
Yeah.
like it's like
very
Facebook.
interesting.
They people send in letters and they respond to each other every month. And there's a guy who answers all your farming questions and there's a recipe.
In a hard copy magazine.
Yeah, and
Yep.
it's a recipe section It's great.
Fantastic.
So we started advertising in that, and we get letters all the time.
Oh, okay.
You know, I saw your ad in Topsoil, and
that's the way to do
there's
it.
people who live just around here who found us through Topsoil. It's very cool.
And it's a cool name.
It's a great name. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I have a ball.
So do you have any advice for, gardeners, orchardists? Because it sounds like you have a lot of folks who are just getting a couple of trees, one or two trees, to be planning ahead for climate change. Do you...
I mean,
How do you
yeah,
push that?
I feel like, again, maybe beating a dead horse a little bit, but diversity. It kills me a little bit when people come in and they want, 4 apple trees and they want 4 of the same thing. It's like, oh man, there's...
And it's 4 honeycrisp.
And it's 4 honeycrisp.
How do you convince them otherwise? And are you able to?
Often you are. Sometimes people just really want their empire, and that's all they're going to,
Interesting.
But
the good thing is...
often, if you pitch them on like, hey, these are good keepers, but this is an early apple and you can spread your apple season out. People don't know there are apples that ripen in late July, early August, all the way through to October. So kind of if you open their eyes to that a little bit and let them know the potential out there, often they'll get excited about it. Often I think they just don't have a lot of knowledge about what's out there, and then if you can kind of give that to them, they're interested.
We do the R-Pick option too,
Yes,
which is kind of cool, because people flip through the catalog and they're like, there's too many words on this paper. I can't.
Well, that was my next question. How do you sort through that massive catalog?
Right. Well, if you have something that you're looking for in particular, you can kind of
go beeline to it.
Right, you can beeline to it. We also have a chart.
We've got a chart which kind of breaks down. I mean, it's still 250
But if you don't know anything about apples or varieties,
Right.
what advice would you give to somebody?
We do have the R-Pick option where you write us a note either on the mail-in order form or online, and it will, you write, I want one that will last a long time in the fridge, or I want one that's red that my kids will eat.
Or taste like
just
this.
tell
Or
us,
taste like whatever.
whatever details you want to throw at us.
And then
we pick it for
match it
them.
up. Yeah.
That's like being the perfect bartender.
It's fun. It's fun.
Right.
I think other people get excited about it too, because never do I mean, unless they specifically are asking for something that can't be fulfilled by anything other than a Honeycrisp. Like, I'm not recommending Empire in Cortland. So it's fun to get lesser known but still really excellent varieties out there that would probably just get passed over if,
Yeah, it's overwhelming. Read the planting guide too. We do send a really rich book that I'm not going to take credit for at all. It was Bill and Di who wrote it. It has pictures in it, and we put it out. And pretty much, unless you've ordered from us for like 4 years in a row, we will pretty much send you a planting guide in your packing slip. Probably a number of them get thrown away because they don't know they're in there, but it's a lot of good information.
And it's on the website too.
Yeah.
Those are the stepping stones to becoming great orchardists.
Yeah.
Whether you are doing it commercially or you have it at your home.
Also, there's a lot of, the kind of crunchy, like if your soil is good, compost, mulch, protect your trees from deer. It doesn't have to be a crazy big fence, but you can, put the little vole cage. We sell those. Put a bigger cage around. We don't sell those, but frequent your local hardware store and find some good fencing.
I mean, that's it. It's not as easy as just plopping it into the soil. There's a lot to it to really nurture it.
Well, a lot of people, they were like, oh, I want apple trees for my camp, or I live in the city, but I have a home outside of Burlington, and I'm gonna put my apple trees there, and you see them once a year. But there is, especially in the first year, there is a lot of maintenance. There's watering, there's mulching, there's making sure that there isn't a porcupine crawling up it. And, I had a customer email and say, what do you do about raccoons? And I was like, what do you mean raccoons? She said, the raccoons got into my cages and uprooted my trees.
Yeah, that was a new one.
But it's cool because I do
pulled it out?
Just whirled around.
Okay.
She must have put, my thinking is maybe she put compost that was too fresh. Right out of the kitchen scraps.
Yeah.
But having talked to customers all day, I kind of get a sense of what other people are doing. So what I've learned is put NPR on a talk radio out in your orchard, and apparently that's supposed to be very good for keeping wild animals away.
No kidding.
Yep, strobe lights and disco music. The animals don't like either, so.
Okay, that's great advice.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, you two are a charm. When I first met you at New York Apple Camp, I was so impressed on how you were hosting with Bill. and that was pretty outstanding. And what you're doing for so many growers all over the map, it's really wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So thank you, and thanks
Yeah.
for being on Cider Chat. It's
Thank
really
you so
awesome.
much for
Thank you for
having
having us. Yeah.
It's all about the niche, isn't it? And for St. Lawrence Nursery, they were talking about zones and the actual temperature. I just want to really clarify, if you don't get that, minus 34 degrees Fahrenheit to Celsius would equal minus 36.7 degrees Celsius, which is super, super cold. And in North America, growing areas are divided into zones. So zone 1 would be the coldest, and then zone 13, the warmest. And currently, St. Lawrence Nursery is in zone 4. Actually, I think they're calling it zone 4B, which is minus 25 degrees Fahrenheit to minus 20. And zone 4A is minus 30 to minus 25. That's why they're able to, say, yeah, these trees will do okay in Alaska. That is cold, cold, cold. So pretty interesting stuff. And I just love how you get a particular niche. And it's good to know. There's a good tip there that Connor was talking about, is to narrow it in. Both of them we're talking about, Connor and Allyssa. You could be doing so many different things, but in the end of the day, you have to realize what it is that you can or can't do, and maybe pull back from that. And that is a good tip for any entrepreneur out there. Well, I hope you, wherever you are, whatever time zone, whatever time of the year that you're listening to this here episode, are doing well. I'm going to put a little reminder in to send an email to info@ciderchat.com to get on the wait list for the next upcoming Totally Cider tour, and to also become a patron today of this here podcast if you found value in what we're talking about. Not only this episode, but 465 episodes waiting for you in the podcast archives. Become a patron by joining at the Cider Chat Patreon page. That's spelled Patreon. Search for that and Cider Chat. And with that, I leave you here. This is Real Wind Caller signing off for now. Looking forward to seeing you in Ciderville.
We like cider, we like ponds, we love orchards and having fun. There is a reason why we do it like this. Oh yes there is. There is a reason why we do it like this. Oh yes there is. There is a reason why we drink it like this. Oh yes there is a reason. We like walking through the orchards, dancing in the streets, smelling all the blossoms, kicking up our feet. We like cider, we like ponds, we like orchards, having some fun. There is a reason why we do it like this. Oh yes there is. There is a reason why we do it like this. Oh yes there is. There is a reason why we drink it like this. Oh yes there is. There is a reason. We like walking through the orchards, dancing in the streets, smelling all the blossoms, kicking up our feet. Oh yeah. We like cider. Oh yes we do. We like ponds. Oh yes we do. We love orchards, having some fun. There is a reason why we do it like this. Ba-da-da-dum. There's a reason why we do it like this. Ba-da-da-dum. There is a reason why we drink it like this. Ba-da-da-dum. Ba-da-da-dum. We like walking down the orchards, dancing in the streets, smelling all the blossoms, kicking up our feet. Oh yeah. We like cider. Ba-da-da-dum. We like ponds. Oh yes we do. We like orchards, having some fun. Yeehaw!